the first thing and the most important thing. That's why we said before, Inna amalu bin niyat. We make our intentions, we should have made our intentions the beginning of Rajab, right? And then we confirm and strengthen our intentions throughout Rajab and Sha'ban, so that we gain that gaze from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the first night of Ramadan. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow each and every one of us to be from those who fall under that gaze. وَيَغْفِرُ لَهُمْ فِي آخِرِ لَيْلَ مِنْهُ. And on the last night of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. Remember, if you were sincere, if you fasted, if you followed the adab, the etiquettes of fasting, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you on the last night of Ramadan. وَقَالَ جِبْرِيلُ لِرَسُولِهِ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. As mentioned that Sayyidina Jibreel, he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this hadith is the famous hadith that we know when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam stepped on the mimbar. And he took one step, and he said, Ameen. And he took another step, and he said, Ameen. And he took the third step, and he said, Ameen. Right? And then the Sahaba asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam afterwards. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam explained to them afterwards what happened. And he said, this was Sayyidina Jibreel that came and he made 3 du'as. Every time I took a step. One of the du'as that he made, he said, Sayyidina Jibreel said that, Man adraka Ramadan falam yughfar lahu ab'adahu. That whoever reaches the month of Ramadan and he leaves the month of Ramadan without gaining the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distance him. Distance him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from becoming closer to the awliya, from inclination and finding tranquility in the station of the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distance him. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said Ameen. And if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said Ameen, then there's no doubt that whoever enters this month and they are too negligent and too lazy to take advantage of this month, and they leave the month without finding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven them, then they will become more distant. They will become distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the scholars have mentioned of alamatul qubul, signs that you have been accepted, or signs that you have been accepted with certain actions. Right? So if you have been accepted in Ramadan, then that would have meant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven you since the end of Ramadan. And from the signs of acceptance is that after the month ends, you find yourself not inclined to bad habits that you had before Ramadan. You find it easier for you to do that which pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم آمين. That Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said Ameen. وقلت, Imam Haddad says, وذلك لتيسير أسباب المغفرة في رمضان أكثر منها في غير من الشهور. Imam Haddad says, why did Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم say Ameen? Right? He says because of how easy it is to gain the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Ramadan. The easiest time to gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy in this is in Ramadan. So if you leave the month and you have not gained that mercy, then you have nobody to blame but yourself. فَلَيْسَ يُحْرَمُ الْمَغْفِرَ فِيهِ إِلَّا مَنْ تَفَاحَشَ إِعْرَاضُ عَنِ اللَّهِ. That you will not be deprived from this mercy, from this forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except that you have transcended the limits of turning your back on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Except that you are consistent in turning your back on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do we mean? Taraweeh comes, and then you make Isha, then you go sleep. You don't make Taraweeh, you don't make Qiyamul Layl, maybe Salat, you don't make Qadha, that you do nothing. You eat and you go sleep. And the Shaykh will speak about eating further on. Right? What do we mean? You continue to turn your back on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It come to 1 o'clock, and you're hungry, and you're angry, then you go around the corner, and you eat. What's called it? Eat after the back. Yeah, you go around the corner, then you eat. And you say, no, I'll just make it up afterwards. Right? Transcend. Then you think, no, Allah's going to forgive me. Forgiveness doesn't work like that. Like Mullah Umar mentioned a few weeks ago in the Ramadan, or one of the other shaykhs spoke, that we try to take advantage of this when we say, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all forgiving, we sin then, we say, no, it's fine, Allah is going to forgive me. That's not how it works. Right? If you think that's how it works, then you have made a big mistake. Right? Because part of the conditions, there are conditions for your tawbah to be accepted. The first one is an-nadam. You have to feel remorse. Right? Second one is al-azam al-la ya'ud li-mithli. Is to be determined to not return to that action. And then the third one is your intention, your honor of second, right? And tawbah, there's a difference between istighfar and tawbah. Istighfar, you sit with the tasbih, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Tawbah, you can do it in Arabic, you can do it in English, you can do it in Afrikaans also if you want to. Tawbah is not done with the mouth. Tawbah is done with the heart. Even if you lay on your musalla crying out without saying a word, that can be your tawbah. And when you find yourself like that, your heart is broken because you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive your sins, then you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the closest to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَنَا عِنْدَ الْمُنْكَسِرَةِ الْقُلُوبِ مِنْ أَجْلِ. That I am with those whose hearts are broken for my sake. Not because my heart is broken because I wanted butter chicken but my wife made curry. My heart is broken because I was driving around, my car broke down. My heart is broken because I don't have enough money now in Ramadan to buy the food I want. My heart is broken because I do not know if I will enter Jannah. My heart is broken because I do not know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is satisfied with me. My heart is broken because I do not know what will happen to me on the day when I will be questioned and taken in account for what I have done. La ilaha illallah. وعظمت جراءته على الله تعالى فاستوجب البعد والطرد عن باب الله. And because of this, فاستوجب means that there's no other way, right? It's compulsory for you. There's no other way for you. There's no other path for you. There's nothing else for you except that you will become distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and exiled. When you say exiled, what does that mean? Exiled as in no more protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Exiled as in you will find so much difficulty in your life. Exiled as in you will become sad and depressed in the state of unhappiness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. That those who turn their backs on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or turn their backs on the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. They will have a very sad and depressing and problematic life. And on the day of Qiyamah, they will be resurrected blind. Right? And they will say, قَالَ رَبِّ لِمَ حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى وَلَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. That, oh Allah, why are you resurrecting? Why am I blind? When before in the dunya, I could see perfectly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتِ فَنَسِيتَهَا وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. Just like that day when we gave you our proofs, just like that day when you are taught about the virtues of Ramadan, and then Ramadan comes and you are still negligent during Ramadan, right? Just like our signs came to you and the virtues came to you. We showed you the virtues of Ramadan through this person that is sitting in front of you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught you the virtues of Ramadan, and then you come during Ramadan and you are negligent and you forget and you don't take advantage. Would you have to blame? Yourself. And if you do that, then on the day of Qiyamah, وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى, you will be forgotten because you will be neglected, right? Because you were negligent. وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. And Hadith says, نَسَأَلُ اللَّهُ الْعَافِيَةَ مِنْ سَخَطِي وَعَذَابِي وَجَمِي بَلَائِي. That we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from His anger and His punishment. وقد ورد أن أبواب السماء وأبواب الجنة تفتح كلها في رمضان. And it's mentioned that the doors of Jannah and the doors of the heavens are open in the month of Ramadan. وتغلق أبواب النيران, and the doors of the hellfire are closed. وتقيد مردة الشيطان ويذهب بهم إلى البحار كي لا يفسدوا على المسلمين صيامهم وقيامهم. And the shayateen, because remember each person has a shaitan, right? We have shayateen and the head is called Iblis, right? So all of the shayateen are shackled up, and the narration mentions here that they are taken to the ocean so that they cannot disturb the people and whisper to the people and mess with the people, mess with the Muslimun while they are fasting and while they are making salah. So the only problem that you have during Ramadan is what? Your nafs. That's the only problem. And in Ramadan, we still say it's easier because your nafs and shaitan work together. Right? Your nafs wants something and shaitan whispers. But now shaitan is gone. So you'd find that it would be easier to get control of your nafs. Like we said, that if you are not forgiven, you become distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because of how easy it is to gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness in Ramadan. وَيُنَادِي مُنَادٍ كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ فِي رَمَضَانٍ, and that the caller calls out on every night of Ramadan, يَا بَاغِي الْخَيْرِ, says, يَا بَاغِي الْخَيْرِ أَقْبِلْ وَيَا بَاغِي الشَّرِّ أَقْصِرْ. That, O person, O Muslim, who is looking for good, who is seeking good, who is seeking blessings, khair, barakah, come closer. Come to your salah. Take it, do your best when you fast. Make extra salah. Increase in sight in the Quran. Come closer. وَيَا بَاغِي الشَّرِّ أَقْصِرْ. And those who want evil, who want bad, who want animosity to spread and problems to spread, أقصر. You will fall into fault. Right? You will definitely fall into fault. وورد أيضا أن من تقرب إلى الله تعالى في رمضان بفريضة عدلت له 70 فريضة في غيره. That whoever becomes closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you have taqarrub and you have ta'abbad. Taqarrub and ta'abbad is the same meaning. Taqarrub is to become closer, but when you say taqarrub, it means ta'abbad, to worship. But why don't we say ta'abbad, we say taqarrub? Because to become closer is a more complete meaning. Because some people, they might worship because they want something. They might worship because they're in need of money. They might worship because they want a reward. They might worship because they want to go to Jannah. But taqarrub means that you worship because you want the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, أَنَّ مَنْ تَقَرَّبَ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فِي رَمَضَانٍ. Whoever worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Ramadan, بِفَرِيضَةٍ, with a fard salah, عَدَلَتْ لَهُ 70 فَرِيضَةً فِي غَيْرِ. It is equal to 70 fard salahs that you make in any other month. Right? One salah, fard salah. وَمَنْ تَقَرَّبَ فِي بِنَافِلَةٍ عَدَلَتْ لَهُ فَرِيضَةً يُؤَدِّيهَا فِي غَيْرِ. And a sunnah salah, a nafila, is equal to a fard salah that you make ada'an in any month, in any other month except Ramadan. فَالنَّوَافِلْ رَمَضَانْ بِمَنْزِلَةِ الْفَرَائِضِ فِي غَيْرِ مِنَ الشُّهُورِ. And that nawafil in Ramadan is on the status, so at the level of a fard salah in every other month. And what is tarawih? It's nawafil, it's nafil, right? Sunnah salah. So if you're making 20 sunnah salahs, and each of that is at the level of the station, right? You're making 2, right? So we say example, 2, each of those are at the level of one fajr that you make outside of Ramadan. And the fajr that you make outside of Ramadan and the dhuhr you make outside of Ramadan is equal to 70 fajrs and dhuhr that you make outside of Ramadan. And that's general, right? Then we times that with the benefits of making Salah in Jama'ah. Salah in Jama'ah is times how much? Times 27. Right? 70 times 27. Right? Add that up. That's making a fard Salah in Ramadan in Jama'ah. Right? All the favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. And yet we still neglect and we still turn our backs. Right? That's why وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another ayah, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. That every favor you have is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فِي غَيْرِ مِنْ حَيْثُ الثَّوَابِ. Right? We're not saying that it's the same as making a fard. Some people are going to make nawafil, sunnah salahs in Ramadan. They say, no, I'm making up for the fards that I didn't make before. It says, min haythu thawab. We're talking about the reward that you get. Right? وَفَرَائِضُهُ مُضَاعَفَةٌ عَلَى الْفَرَائِضِ فِي غَيْرِ إِلَى 70 ضِعْفًا. Right? And like we said, that the fard are multiplied by 70. We times that 70 by 23. That's why one of our teachers would say that there's always benefit in the business deals that you make with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the some scholars would mention, they would refer to it as a business deal to make us understand, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bought from the believers their souls in what? In return for what? In return for Jannah. Right? So the business deals that you make with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you always make profit. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام من صام رمضان وقامه إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. That the person that fasts the month of Ramadan and he stands in Salah the month of Ramadan and also he recites Quran in the month of Ramadan, Imanan. And what is Iman? Iman is, we say belief, but Iman is وَالتَّصْدِيقُ بِوَعْدِ اللَّهِ. Right? You do it with a true and firm belief in the promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you. وَالْإِحْتِسَابِ. What is the ihtisab? Accountability, but yes, ikhlas. You have sincere accountability upon yourself in what you're doing in this month. And if you do it with the iman and ihtisab, what happens? غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِ. That all your sins will be forgiven. وَلِلصَّائِمِ آدَابٌ لَا يُكَمِّلُ صِيَامُهُ إِلَّا بِهَا. Right? And like we said, that the adab, the adhan goes off, quarter past, 20 past tonight. وَلِلصَّائِمِ آدَابٌ. And that the person that, for the person that fasts, there's, you have it 17 minutes past and 20 past is fine. The fasting person, there's adab, right? What is adab? Etiquettes. Right? For everything we do, there's etiquettes. So, al-Isa'im adab, la yukammil siyamu illa biha. That for the person that fasts, there are etiquettes and his fasting will not be complete without these etiquettes. Meaning that he will not get the full reward of his fasting without these etiquettes. The first one, famin ahammiha, Sheikh says from the most important ones, is أن يحفظ لسانه عن الكذب والغيبة وعن الخوض فيما لا يعني ويحفظ عينه وأذنه عن النظر والاستماع إلى ما لا يحل له وإلى ما يعد فضولا في حقه. First thing is that you protect your tongue from lying and ghiba. What is ghiba? Backbiting. Right? Why Imam Shafi'i says in his diwan, in one of his poems, he says, احفظ لسانك أيها الإنسان لا يلدغنك إنها ثعبان وإنه ثعبان. That protect and beware of your tongue, O insan. Why? Because do not let it sting, do not sting yourself and do not sting others. Because your tongue is like a snake. Right? Like we know when we were small, then they will tell you that song, okay, when I was younger. And then they say that song, sticks and stones may break my bones, but jokes will never hurt me. Right? We have an understanding of the complete opposite. That words can do more harm than sticks and stones. Because your body, you can go to the doctor, you can get an operation, But if your heart becomes broken and your mentality becomes scarred, then most of the time there's no going back to that. Right? La ilaha illallah. From lying and ghibah. Right? وَأَنِ الْخَوْضِ فِي مَا لَا يَعْنِي. And from immersing yourself in that which has nothing to do with you. Two people talking, and then you jump in. Yeah, I also think so. But they have nothing to do with you. Two people talking about where they're going to go, and then you come out of nowhere. Where are we going? It have nothing to do with you. Sometimes people are having a serious conversation and you jump in. And you play sheikh and you give the answer. Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Min husni islam al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni. The best thing that the person can do is what? To leave that which does not concern him. To leave that which has nothing to do with him. وَيَحْفَظْ عَيْنُهُ وَأُذُنُهُ عَنِ النَّظَرِ وَالْإِسْتِمَاعِ إِلَى مَا لَا يَحِلُّ لَهُ. And to protect your gaze, your eyes, and your hearing. Right? From gazing and listening to that which you should not. To that which is not allowed, which you are not allowed to listen to. Right? That which is haram. وَإِلَى مَا يُعَدُّ فُضُولًا فِي حَقِّ. And anything that would make you fuduli. What is fuduli? Fuduli is somebody that's busy in everybody's business. Could say a persona villa. Right? You just, everything you want to know. You come inside, the people's talking, and then you ask your friend what they're talking about. But it has nothing to do with you. You just want to know every single thing. Two sheikhs are having a conversation, you ask your friend what they're talking about. And he tell you, like, no, I read about that ayah in the translation of the Quran, and you go jump in and you talk about it. There's nothing to do with you. But you want to know everything, and you want to be in the spotlight of everything. Right? فضولي. وَكَذَلِكَ يَحْفَظُ بَطْنَهُ عَنْ تَنَاوُلِ الْحَرَامِ وَالشُّبْهَةِ. And like that, you protect your stomach from what? Your belly, from eating haram. And that which has doubt in it. Right? It's narrated that the most hated vessel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? A full belly, a full stomach. The most hated vessel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a full stomach. Why? Because when your stomach is full, then you have no less to do anything. Then you want to go sleep, you want to lay. Right? وَخُصُوصًا عَنِ الْإِفْطَارِ. Right? So you're supposed to not eat haram. Right? And that which has doubt in. But I say specifically, when you're having iftar, يَجْتَهِدُ جِدًّا أَلَّا يُفْطِرُ إِلَّا عَلَى الْحَلَالِ. Put your utmost effort in to making sure that you are eating halal when you break your fast. And some of the scholars mention, إِذَا صُمْتَ فَانْظُرْ عَلَى أَيِّ شَيْءٍ تُفْطِرْ وَعِنْدَ مَنْ تُفْطِرْ. When you are fasting, right, then take note of two things. Take note of what you are breaking your fast with, meaning making sure the food is halal, and take note of who you are breaking your fast with. Right? Why? إشارة إلى الحث على التحري والاحتياط فيما يفطر عليه. Firstly, what you're eating, to make sure, right, that is halal. Secondly, who you break your fast with. Who you break your fast with, most of the time is the people that you will spend the rest of the night with. Right? Most of the time. And if those people are negligent, you will be negligent. Who you break your fast with, because you have to make sure that that person is bringing halal food. Right? Who you break your fast with, because that person could be somebody who's not fasting properly, who's eating in the background, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from that. And then he comes and he whispers in your ears and you end up also eating. He whispers only 5 minutes before maghrib, you can eat. Right? So beware what you break your fast with and who you break your fast with. Right? وَكَذَلِكَ يَحْفَظُ الصَّائِمُ جَمِيعُ جَوَارِحَهُ عَنْ مُلَابَسَةِ الْآثَامِ ثُمَّ عَنِ الْفُضُولِ. protect your limbs. What are the limbs that you need to protect? Your eyes, your nose, your ears. What else? Your feet, your hands. And what else? What's the last one? Your tongue, your mouth. And the other one is your belly, but it's not real limb. You protect those from what? From doing sin with any of those things. Right? Anything. Speaking bad, listening to bad, looking at bad, walking to bad. Right? Anything. ثم عن الفضول, from being busy, being in everybody's business. فبذلك يتم صومه ويزكو. And through these, by being consistent in these virtues, right? يتم صومه. Your fasting, your physical fasting becomes, and your inner fasting becomes complete. Right? ويزكو, and becomes purified. وكم من صائم يتعب نفسه بالجوع والعطش. And how many of those fasting tire themselves out because they are hungry and thirsty? ويرسل جوارحه في المعاصي فيفسد بذلك صوم. Right? They're fasting, right? So they're hungry and thirsty, but that's all they are, hungry and thirsty, because with their limbs they go and sin and they go and do wrong. فيفسد صوم. Right? And his fasting becomes null and void. Or his fasting becomes rotten. Right? Because of that haram which he did. وَيُذِعُ بِذَلِكَ التَّعْبُ. And all that effort and that tiredness that he had for the day is worth nothing. Because he has no reward. كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, like Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, كم من صائم ليس له من صيامه إلا الجوع والعطش. That how many of those who fast, they have nothing for their fasting except that they are hungry and thirsty. Nothing else. No reward, no barakah, nothing else. Right? إلا الجوع والعطش. وترك المعاصي واجب على الدوام على الصائم وعلى المفطر. And staying away from sin is compulsory, right? على الدوام, generally, in every state. But very important that it's wajib to leave it for the person that is fasting and the person that breaks his fast. I'm fasting, I'm pious, I do everything. Then when you break your fast, then I go sleep. Or then you break your fast and you go with your friends and you go do whatever you do. No tarawih, no isha, nothing. I break my fast, maghrib. I'm pious from fajr till maghrib. Then afterwards, I'm back to me. Right? He says, for the person that's fasting and for the person that breaks his fast. غير أن الصائم أولى بالتحفظ. It's just that the fasting person, he needs to be more vigilant of what he's doing, right? Because if he's not, the other person that's not fasting, he gets punished. But the person that's fasting, he could lose the rewards of that fasting if he doesn't take note. وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِ أَوْجَبْ وَآكَدْ. And for the fasting person, it's more wajib, right? فَافْهَمْ. Understand this, right? This is قال عليه الصلاة والسلام الصوم جنة. الصوم جنة. That fasting is like a shield of protection. الصوم جنة. فإذا كان يوم صوم أحدكم فلا يرفث ولا يفسق ولا يجهل. That if it's a day that you are fasting, Ramadan, outside of Ramadan, فلا يرفث ولا يفسق ولا يجهل. Do not be ignorant. Do not be do not cause fasad, right? Do not be ignorant. Do not be arrogant. Do not have animosity against anybody. Do not cause animosity against anybody. Do not think bad about anybody. Do not backbite anybody, right? فَإِنِ امْرُؤٌ شَاتَمَهُ أَوْ قَاتَلَهُ. And if somebody comes to you and he started swearing at you or speaks bad about you or he wants to attack you and fight you, فَلْيَقُلْ إِنِّي صَائِمٌ. Then you tell him that I am fasting. He comes swearing, shouting, and so on. Step back. I'm fasting, right? I want nothing to do with this. I want the reward that my Rabb is going to give me. So step back. Right? There's another hadith, Rasulullah SAW, he repeats it. He says, فَلْيَقُلْ إِنِّي صَائِمْ إِنِّي صَائِمْ إِنِّي صَائِمْ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. That repeat it to yourself. To protect you and to stop him. Right? You say that and you leave. And then to stop yourself from getting angry, you say it to yourself, إِنِّي صَائِمْ إِنِّي صَائِمْ. That I am fasting, and this month of fasting is a month of patience. And the Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, As-sabr thawabuhu al-jannah. Right? That the reward for fasting is Jannah. Right? What time is it? What time am I go? Huh? 7. Not 17. 7. Huh? Okay. So inshallah, we stop there. Then the next part, the Shaykh is going to mention a few more of the adabs of Sawm. Right? There is only 4 classes, right? Because it's a month in Ramadan. So next week we'll complete the adab and then maybe go into Salatul Tarawih. Because here he speaks about the virtues, which we spoke about, some of the virtues, fasting, and then we spoke about the adab. And we'll complete the adab and go into Salatul Tarawih. Right? And because there's 3 days, so we'll do the adab, then go into Salatul Tarawih, then finish Salatul Tarawih. Then the last Wednesday, he speaks about, which is the last part where he speaks about Sunnah fasting, Nafil fasting, right? To explain, emphasize, because some people don't know when all the days of Sunnah fasting is. For example, many people don't know about Ayyamul Bahr, right? Which is who knows when's Ayyamul Bahr? That type? When's Ayyamul Bahr? The white days is the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th. And then there's a lot of people that don't know when about Ayyamul Sood, about the black days. Ayyamul Bahr is the middle of the month. Ayyamul Sood is 3 days of fasting, the end of the month. Right? That's what we learn about on the last Wednesday. Right? Also, when you speak about fasting, and we'll end up with this, we have 3 types of fasting. We have Sawm al-Umum. We mentioned this. Last year Ramadan, we mentioned this over and over. We have Sawm al-Umum, wa Sawm al-Khusus, wa Sawm al-Khusus al-Khusus. You have fasting of the general public, general fasting. Then you have the fasting of the elite. Then you have the fasting of those who are more elite than the elite. General fasting is staying away from food and drinks. General fasting is stay away from food. The elite, they stay away from food and drinks. They stay away from sustenance physically, outer sustenance, and inner sustenance. Zahir and Batin. Right? Meaning they don't just stay away from food and drinks, but they control their nafs and they do not fight, they do not swear, they do not think bad, they do not backbite. Right? That's the elite. Then we have the elite of the elite. Those people, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from them. Ameen. They fast. How do they fast? Remember, fasting is cutting yourself off from food and drinks. Like the second group, the elite, they cut themselves off from food and drinks and from any bad characteristics. Right? The elite of the elite in this month of Ramadan, they cut themselves off from everything except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything not connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you won't see them doing it, you won't see them close to it. Fasting, read Quran all day. Like one of the Habaib, he was a Jamalul Layl, he used to love reciting the Quran. And he used to find a sweet taste when reciting the Quran, to the point when he recited the ayah, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمْلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. He ended up repeating the last part. Says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever does good, right? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمْلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who do good and those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do good, سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, will make them beloved to Him. Right? And wood is an unconditional love. Right? And the Shaykh, this Habib, when he got to that part of the ayah, he ended up repeating that, not the ayah, that word, the whole night. He ended up saying wudda, 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 the whole night. Repeating that word because of the sweetness that he found in the Quran, to the point that the scholars mentioned that the same Shaykh, he wouldn't recite Quran in the day. Why? Because he said that when I recite the Quran, I taste honey. When I recite the Quran, I taste honey. So I don't want to risk breaking my fast by reciting the Quran. So he would wait at night till the night comes, and the whole night he would spend reciting the Quran, eating his honey the whole night. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the understanding. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who take benefit from these classes, so that we can take the ultimate benefit in the month of Ramadan. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.